Connecting the Dots, episode 48, and this is my first Order of Australia Medal recipient on my little passion project. And one thing I've learned about Order of Australia Medal recipients is they all have one thing in common, and it's this desire to give back to the world and serve those around them. And that's actually the premise of why I wanted to chat to this guy today, because of the work he does. Let's go find out more about what he does. This is Sean. And while I actually am more fascinated about what you do now, I actually want to find out how you got here. So I want to go back to the beginning.
My car, actually. Oh, no.
Well, we're at your place, and this is a lovely view. Where did you go to school?
Gee, I went to school in the Snowy Mountains. Very lucky man to do that. No one's asked me for a long time, but my family moved here in 1956, or mum and dad, for 2 years to make their fortune and go back to Ireland and open a pub.
Right.
So I should be pouring Guinness. However, we buried dad down there about 30 years ago, and mum's still in a town called Tumut in country New South Wales.
Yeah, wow.
She's 90. But I was very lucky when I look back, and these days, as you know, I coach and I'm around mindset. I grew up in these snowy towns, particularly a place called Talbingo. And I reckon it would have been one of the most multicultural places in the world at that time. So we had, Saki next door, and we had Ziggy up the street, and we had Charles, and we had Giovanni, and we'd go to each of their houses. But as a little tacker, I didn't know any different. That was just my world. I didn't understand there was the towns that were just full of Caucasians, with maybe Chinese chef or something. Didn't discover that till I was 14. So for me to grow up in that way, you've got to get, as a retrospective, how lucky I was. I had no clue that the world was different to that. We had one school, Talbingo Primary School, and we all went to it. We had one shop, and we all went to it. We had one church, and all the churches who wanted to worship in the Snowy Mountains, Catholic, philanthropy, it wouldn't matter who you were, you used the church, and they rostered it around. So these days, as you know, we've got churches everywhere, and they're mostly empty. There's one building, and everybody used the same building.
Yeah.
But as I look back, I think it just left me very open to everyone. I went to different houses, I met different kids, and I went to school with a mixing pot, and they built the Snowy Mountain scheme. So it was a fascinating, fabulous place to live, high energy. A lot of people up there play hardball in the singles barracks, and my dad was a catering manager, so he served a lot of alcohol and food and so forth. And anyway, we had a great life. Then we moved into a town called Tumut, and I went to the Catholic high school there. Only went to year 10, so that was another great experience, really. But yeah, Caucasian town, basically. It was an interesting change at age 14. And then because our school ran out at year 10, I went to a boarding school called St. Patrick's in Goulburn. So 2 years there for 11 and 12.
Yep. Yeah. And where did you go after high school?
After high school, well, I left home at 16, basically, because I went to boarding school. And we never came home. I came home for holidays, of course, played footy, and we worked and whatever we did on the holidays. But then straight after high school, I went to Canberra.
Yep.
To what was then Signadu Teachers College. I did my teaching training there, and I started teaching at St. Edmund College in Canberra.
Okay.
So 4 years as a teacher, and great school. We had George Gregan, Ricky Stewart, who beat us yesterday. Bastard, I got to play touch footy with him, and we had some really great sports people went through that college. But I did 2 years there, 4 years there, and then I became, I believe, one of the youngest principals in New South Wales. I took over a country school at Ardlethan, about an hour north of Wagga, 2-teacher school. And I spent 2 years out there at turned 26 and 27.
And I'm guessing back then a male teacher was a rarity?
No, I think we had a lot more of us back then. I think we've got less now.
Okay, is it one of those, because I'm based on what I read about it these days, is not they want to bring more men to teaching, but it's because it was a drop-off, was it?
Yeah, look, there was a lot of women. In a few of the places, I guess I was the youngest on staff and I was the only bloke. So, but there was a lot more men around in the game then.
Yep.
I think some of the things that have happened have seen men escape. There's a whole other conversation about education and what I think's wrong with it and how we need to rebuild it. Some of the challenges that teachers, God love them, are fabulous people, like nurses, touching the community. They're just being put under ridiculous pressure for no good reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did 2 years at Ardlethan. It was great. Really fabulous couple of years out there. Then I moved to a town called Gundagai, Tucker Box.
Yep.
Which is close to where my family lives. And I did 6 years as a principal there in a larger school, primary school. That was fabulous. Terrific town, terrific people. And I got involved in a whole bunch of stuff there, rescue work. Because I used to go to join committees to do community service and join in, but I found I always became the president or the secretary. Just about always. I'm sick of always doing meetings and so forth. So So I joined the fire brigade in Adelaide, and I joined the rescue squad in Gundagai, and sadly, we had the worst place in Australia for car accidents. We had up to 60 call-outs a year, 30 or 40 fatals, and we were just volunteers. So we were primary response. We did the jaws of life. I drove the ambulance to Wagga Base Hospital sometimes. We drove police cars. The ambulance came past to pick me up once or twice to go to a crash. And anyway, upside of that was it gives you a lot of perspective about what matters in life. I've just been out on the road. We just brought someone home in a body bag, put them in the fridge and help clean up there. And then you come back and there's a little problem at school. It's, got maybe a mum or dad really upset. But when you put it in comparison, you think, well, this person just died here and you've got this little problem there. Do you think we could maybe tone that back a bit?
Yeah.
So mindset and attitude became, for me, between the Talbingo experience and the rescue experiences, it really started to become a front of mind. I think some people need different experiences to get more perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, that's the same with our kids and the malaise there. And, with first world problems, young kids with issues, sometimes that are just not worth it.
Yep.
Not worth the angst that they've experienced.
Yep.
So if we get them involved doing something different, or if we could take them to a third world country and just be out there for a couple of weeks, you'd think, compared to them, I don't really have a problem.
I read somewhere once that life is really only just a collection of responses to the things happening around us.
Yeah, interesting.
So how did you end up in Queensland?
Well, I went down to another town after Gundagai. When my dad died, I stayed 1 more year in Gundagai. Then I applied for a couple of jobs as a principal, and I went to a school in Bega, which was a landmark place as well. So
Where the cheese is?
cheeses, yep, beautiful town, great cheese, nice cows, happy people. Yeah. So anyway, Bega was about a 6-year stint, and Josie, our eldest daughter, was born there, and it was just a great experience. But after the 6 years there, my brother said there was a job up here at a place called Nudgee Junior College. And I thought, so I applied for a job at Bayhaven in New South Wales, at Canberra in the ACT, and up here at Nudgee Junior. And the people up here offered the job first, and they said, let's give it a go. So we moved to Queensland.
Yeah, wow. And when you say Nudgee, boarding school?
Nudgee Junior was 24 acres on the river at Injapilla.
Right, okay.
25 acres, just a stunning place on the river.
Yeah, wow.
So it was interesting to try after being in country schools with not much money, Catholic primary schools with not much money. We'd take leftovers, manure, stuff from, the state school down the road, and to go to a private school where we had parents who were well heeled, but also really involved in their kids' education and so forth. It was an interesting experience. And I stayed there for 3 of a 5-year contract.
Yep.
Decided it was time to move on.
Right. Where'd you go to there?
Well, then I moved on to career, corporate business. Yeah, I'd had a marriage breakdown after Nudgee Junior. Long story there, but so I had to restart it, and I probably needed a regular job, to go and rent somewhere while we had a house. Anyway, it's a long story, but I had to go and get a regular job. So I jumped into Telstra, did 6 years in there. I was area sales manager, account manager, area sales manager, then took over area sales manager of the Sunshine Coast and Moreton Bay. And that was an interesting, fabulous corporate experience.
Yep.
But being promoted pretty quickly on a few occasions, I got quite high. I got to experience some really interesting people and some really interesting businesses. Sunshine Coast, half of rural Queensland was in my patch, and so I had an office in the city. I had an office here in the house. I had an office in Ipswich, and I had an office in Harry Street in Toowoomba. And I commuted from here to Toowoomba. So it was about 50 each way. But only, go up there once a week or something.
Yeah.
So great people, great organisation. But there came a time when I thought, I love what Telstra's doing for me. I really like the company. I love what I learned and so forth. I was really just a number. And it was part of the sausage factory, and I think I was called to something else. And so in education, I was teaching. In my Telstra, I was teaching. In a multi-level marketing company I was part of, I did a lot of coaching of people, and I was teaching all the time. And then I thought, I was quickly promoted in Telstra, but I was coaching and teaching, account managers and so forth. And I thought, I might just try and do that myself, because I love coaching.
Yep.
And I love speaking. So as you can tell, I talk a lot. So I was coaching and speaking, and I decided I was just going to bail out. So of my own volition, one day I said, I'm not going to stay in Telstra after 6 years. And
yep,
I bailed out.
And is that around the time I would have started hearing your name, and there was this calling to have a look over the fence of politics?
Oh, maybe. Could have been around then. I was called to look at politics a lot, but more local government, I think. But anyway, for better or worse. And It's a story I won't go down that track right now, I think, but the political scene for me is one I found. I like people to either put up or shut up.
Yep.
And I hear a lot of people who talk, but they don't try to do anything. So, yeah, so without jumping into allegiances, I decided to stump up and have a go, as you know.
Yep.
And I thought, well, at least I can whinge because I've had a go. I nominated. For me to go and nominate, I had to give up my Irish heritage. I had to give up my Irish passport.
Yep.
That was a huge commitment. Like it really mattered dearly to me.
Yep.
But I was that committed to the cause. I thought, I want to get in. I want to stop talking to the TV. And I think in government, we need more people like the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, rather than just career politicians or unionists or lawyers, frankly.
Yep.
I think we need people who represent the community and who can then listen to the community, represent their ideas in town and argue for them. And then if there's wisdom in some other decision, come back and articulate to the community why the decision or the policy is being made, so people at least understand it on the ground. But anyway, I missed out for a little, and I think I was lucky.
Having some experience in that regard, I think you were too. It's interesting. It was that moment in your life where I heard about you first. Somebody that was involved in that process spoke very highly of you, was impressed with some of your views. And, from there, I was able to, somewhere down the track meet you and had already an idea about this, man that I'd heard a lot about and heard, a lot of good things about. So here we are today, a long time later.
Nice to hear.
So missed out on what going down the political path. And I commend you for that in terms of having a go and then deciding or realizing it wasn't for you. Tell me about what you do now.
Well, what I do now is what I love to do now. I'm a coach and a speaker, and I'm particularly a mindset coach. And so I think a lot of my experiences in life led me to this place where I had that disposition, but when you live in that place and then you suddenly experience a town that's so different from what I grew up in, as our country. Interesting. And then when you do rescue work and as I said, you go and take someone off the road and put them in a morgue and then turn up at a school and you've got parents with the wrong level of angst and you think, something's wrong here. And then I was also part of a significant rescue. You might remember the Thredbo landslide. So for my sins, I was in the SES in Bega and Eden, and we had a commander who had to move on, or a local control had to move on. And so they said, Gordo, can you just fill in for a couple of weeks and be the boss? And I said, oh, no, I want to be an Indian in this world. I've got enough. I was already chairing the state principals committee and I love national committees. I said, no, I've got enough going on. Anyway, I acquiesced. I said, I'll give you 6 or 7 weeks. I'll just fill in. And so that became several months. And then during that time, we had the Sydney Hobart yacht race and we had people out spotting there. But in particular, the Thredbo landslide happened. And so I took a team up there and I was on site when we heard Stuart Diver's voice come through the rubble. And people who know the story will know that was just life-changing.
I think the whole country were glued to their TV during that period.
I believe until Kathy Freeman's 100 metres run, it was the most watched TV in Australian history.
Yep.
But anyway, I was there, but also got promoted there too. So that night on the site, around midnight, I was made the leader of the SES on the site. So there was Paul Featherstone, myself, one of the police, and Steve Hurst, and fire brigade guy. And it was a significant place to be. There's a whole other keynote I talk about what happened, what leadership lessons I got from it, and just what happened, how it transpired as a rescue. And while it was a great rescue, it was a retrospective again. People say great rescue, but I've asked when I do keynotes, how many people died? I ask you, do you know?
No.
No one does, but everyone remembers Stuart Diver. Everyone remembers the great rescue. And they said, great rescue, Gordo. And I said, it was, but it was a big tragedy. We lost 18 people.
Wow.
I saw some of them. It's not pretty. It's a terrible situation. But it caused me to think, how come we remember Stuart Diver, and it's almost a good thing because we rescued him, and yet we lost 18. Does that make sense? I thought, interesting how we see that. And that gave rise to a charity I started called SchoolAid. It's a love job on the side, but 2 other things happened. One other thing happened in Bega was there's a boy called Brendan who was in year 5, so say about 11. Wandered into the office with me carrying a box. He put it on my desk and I put my box in. We're just making conversation with Brendan. I said to him, so buddy, what do you reckon you'll be doing when you're 25? He said, oh, gee, Mr. Gordon, I don't think we'll be here. And I said, oh, I didn't know you were going anywhere. He said, well, we're not. And I said, well, I don't understand. He said, I don't think any of us will be here. And he's thinking, you've got to remember 1999 was the time of Armageddon. He's sitting watching the TV news at 6 o'clock, being informed by the information, informed by this stuff, and you've got to read poor worldview some of the kids have now. And he was stuck with that. He said, I don't think any of us will be.
Yeah, wow.
And I said, mate, look out the window, lucky, just some blue sky, green grass, happy cows, nice. Yeah. Didn't cut it. So I went home a very depressed principal from that. I couldn't believe that I had a kid in my school feeling that way. I had Josie, who was then about 2. I thought, she's going to grow into this world as well. How many other kids feel like that? I did some research and I found that, 1 in 16 kids are feeling anxious. 1 in 6, actually. 1 in 16 were depressed. That's two in a class. And in the year that I looked, there was about 9,000 calls to Kids Helpline, specifically talking about suicide by kids, young people. Gobsmacked. So I spent a few days thinking about it. I had a few beers and more than a few scotches. And I've even got a bit of a page there with a scotch glass mark on it as I pondered, what could I do in my little spot? And I spoke to my staff and I said, there's kids in our school. I don't know why they bother coming. Like, why teach him maths and science if he has no hope? And what I did discover was that when kids are involved in philanthropy, when they're helping someone else, when they're kind to someone, when they show gratitude, they feel good. So the problem was anxiety, depression, suicide. But I reckon, and so it's a long answer to your short question, what I do now is I coach. But I coach for solutions, not problems. And I think what you focus on expands. It just does. If you focus on debt, you'll be in debt forever. And I think we're focusing on anxiety, depression, suicide too much, not on hope, agency, resilience, grit. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Kindness, gratitude. So I thought, well, if I get the kids involved in stuff, which they're doing anyway, there was a scale thing going on. I thought, we see some bad stuff happen in the world. We have a little fundraiser at our school, but our school is just a little silo. And if you've got kids and they go to school and they take a gold coin along, quite often they have no clue what it's going for. So I can wear these clothes, but I was just taking a gold coin. I wanted them to get a sense of, I'm bringing this along because it makes a difference to something else. So I called the schools in Bega together, and there's about 25 of them. They all come to the RSL Club, and they agreed with my idea that we do something together. Just happened that the Turkey earthquake had happened. So collectively, we raised about $40,000, which is a lot bigger from country schools. And you just knew the whole town, everyone felt good about it. We'd done this thing, and we made a difference to something in Turkey that I can't recall now, but we sent the money there. But more important for me, and it's more than nuance, more important for me was the kids who gave the giving felt better. They'd seen all the disaster, right? But they felt better. They'd had a sense of agency. So then I was on the National Council, and I was on the Council for Professional Development for all schools in Australia. So I had this idea with 10,000 schools. I took to the Hobart Primary Principals Conference in 1999, this idea. I said, what if we all work together? Like if all 10,000 schools got together in the wake of a tragedy and we say, we'll just chuck in $100. There's $1 million aid fund. We could use it on behalf of kids, and then they could be going home on the bus, and on Triple J they could hear that, well, the government sent $4 million and the kids already raised $1 million and they're doing something too in response to crises.
Yep.
So we did that. It was resoundingly accepted by the state systems, the Catholic systems and the independent systems. And then I popped over and spoke to the secondaries, and they all jumped on board. And then we had our first appeal in 1999, and we had a crack at raising money for East Timor. So you might recall East Timor, that had been raised pretty much by the departing Indonesians, and Peter Cosgrove was over there doing his thing. And so we raised without any organisation, no legal structure. I just had all this money coming, like $160,000 I think came. I gave it to someone else to manage, a principal's group. I said, send it to the treasurer there. I don't want to touch the money. But it was a beautiful project, and we just said at the time, so Gordo's a good bloke, it's a good idea, we support it. And that was 26 years ago. And we then went over, I've got to go over to East Timor, and we opened the first school in Dili.
Yeah, right.
So, we had a little bit of money with the World Bank and the World of the groups. We just decided to open a school anyway, and the word was spread around on a Sunday in a very Catholic nation. This word was passed through churches apparently. We had 500 places in our school, and 5,000 people turned up.
Yeah, awesome.
Anyway, we did that. We did another one the following year. We built an education/medical centre up at Letifoho, south of Dili, up in the hills, and that was fantastic. And subsequently, we've done lots of projects. We've now raised $6.7 million. We've involved about 60% of all schools in Australia, primary, secondary, from all walks. But more importantly, we've got kids who are giving, feeling better about themselves and their place in the world and their ability to actually respond to drama.
It's interesting. You talk about, focusing on what you focus on is whatever your turn of words were there.
Expands.
Expands. I like that. I grew up understanding that the concept of gratitude and that you should do it, but there was never a why around it. And it wasn't until I saw a YouTube video with I don't know if you've ever come across him, a Sean Anker, a psychologist in the States.
Yep.
And he talks about why you do it, and it trains the brain to look for the good in the world. And it was just like the penny dropped for me, and I went,
Yep.
now I understand why I should sit down each day and write the
Absolutely.
3 things of gratitude for me, because it's priming my brain to continue the day looking for the other things that are good about it.
Totally right. We think we can multitask, but we really can't. Your brain can only deal with one thing at a time, or your mind. And I don't confuse the mind with the brain. The brain's a component part of the mind that we can chat about. But gratitude is so powerful. All of my clients get a book, a gratitude book, when they start working with me as a coach, and all of them are asked to fill in 6 things every morning and to reflect on them at night time that they're grateful for. There's no question. It's so powerful. It's life-changing. I actually call it vitamin G. Right? It's Gordo's vitamin G is gratitude. Have you had your vitamin G today? If you haven't, get on with it. All right, so I do that bit. And it takes a little bit of practice. Like, a lot of people think they want to find something they're grateful for, and it's going to be really lofty. I had one client years ago, and he said, "Oh, Gordo, it's so hard." I said, "What is?" "We're doing the gratitude every day. Do I have to do it every day?" I said, "Yes, every day. Just all it is put the date and write 6 things down. It's really easy. And then that's it. You don't have to write a letter to anyone, and that's it." "But it's really hard. I'll have to run out." I said, "Well, you can repeat some, but what's hard about it? Just thinking of new things." I said, "Oh, righto." I said, "Tell you what, you stay where you are. I'll come pick you up. We'll just pop down to the hospital here where they've got the people having their chemo treatment in the lounges, and we'll just sit there and have a cup of coffee, and you'll just chat for a bit. I think you'll think of some things to be grateful." And at the same time, the Winter Olympics were on. It was the disabled and the Special Olympics that were going on at the same time. And I said to him, "We might watch a bit of sport tonight too." Well, I think you get some ideas there too from people skiing with no legs, with one ski strapped to their bums. Like, I think there's a lot to be grateful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I teach people to do that, and it's life-changing. It just flicks the perspective from how bad is it. Like when I saw a parent who's stressed out about a kid's getting a spelling word wrong on a test, and I've just come back from a road rescue where someone's died. You can just have to have that chat to say, "Can we just shift this a bit?"
I've even found with practicing it that you can even be grateful for the opposites of things. So one day I might be grateful for the sun and the sunshine, and the next day I'm grateful for the rain too.
Yes,
It's a powerful exercise.
totally is.
I grew up with parents that drove around in their car with cassette tapes shoved in it. I don't know if it was for them or me, listening to Zig Ziglar.
Zig Ziglar was great.
But you've got a bit of a guru you like.
I do. I've got a number of them. Zig's one of them. Bob Proctor's my big guru, and Jim Ryan. But Zig Ziglar, I love his comment about, if you help enough other people get what they want, you'll get everything you want.
Yeah.
And that's just, like the SchoolAid thing, like some of the other things I do. If you look out and help other people, it comes back to you.
Yep.
It's karma. It's a law like gravity. And whether you understand it or not, it affects you. It's just easier to walk down hills than to walk up hills, whether you understand gravity or not. And if you help people, I've actually made up a word. I'll give it to you on my business card, and the word is in reach. It took me a long time to understand this good feeling people have when they help somebody else out. So I coined the word in 1999. I'd love people to use it. The Governor General's used it. Various people have used it. But when you help other people, that's outreach. And then people say, "But I feel good," and the kids will describe it. They feel nice and lots of things. I had a lady who was leaving my tuck shop after, 16 or 17 years before me. And she was leaving after all this year, volunteer at the tuck shop 3 days a week. You can imagine what she put up with. But anyway, she's beautiful. And I said to her, "Thanks, Vi. Here's some scones and here's some flowers and a lovely thank you." And she said these words that struck me so powerfully. She said, "Oh, Sean, it's been lovely, and I got so much more out of this than I ever put in." She came 3 days a week for 16 years, and she felt good because she'd served the community, helped the kids, made a sandwich for some kid who didn't bring the money that day, and just a beautiful human being. So in reach, I just found you couldn't describe that feeling in one word. So I made up for it, in reach.
Yeah,
Which describes the feeling you have, the good feeling you have when you help someone else out, which is what I want for our kids through SchoolAid.
Yeah.
As for my guru, I bumped into a guy called Bob Proctor, and I actually bumped into him after having joined a multi-level marketing company, of all things. They were selling products that I just loved. So I thought, I don't care how you buy them. I just want to get them. And then they said, "Well, if you tell a few other people about it, you make a few dollars." I thought, well, that's fine with me. I'll tell people if they're at Woolies and Coles if I like them. So I shared, and suddenly I had a black Alfa Romeo on the driveway and trips to America. I'm making big money out of it, like over 10 grand a month. I'm happy to do that. It's a highly leveraged, very fair, non-Ponzi fee. You spend money, you get a product. So But while I was there, I was exposed to people like Zig Ziglar, like Jim Rohn, like Bob Proctor, and I was amazed at what I hadn't learned academically at university. And I post to my first teaching, I did 2 more degrees while I was principally. Things about mindset, things about paradigms, things about who are you? Like, why do you feel the way you feel, which is a function of the way you think. We teach children a lot of knowledge. So they come out and they come out with a lot of technical knowledge. They can pass tests and do well at NAPLAN and get good ATAR scores, but they don't know much about themselves or how to drive themselves or how to change if they're feeling bad. And so what I learned from these people is that it's actually a choice. You've been brought up by people who love you and care for you, and they will teach you what's worked for them. But if their life isn't that good, you might think, maybe I should think of another way to do stuff. And so I help people interrogate the beliefs they've got. I don't tell them what to believe. Just interrogate the beliefs you've got. If you're not getting the right results, I can show you strategies that are proven now from the likes of Bob Proctor over 50 and 60 years that you can design your life and live the life you want on purpose. Just choose to. And then big D discipline, you've got to do the thing.
Yeah.
So probably if I use a sporting analogy, I'd say that, in sport, you don't run to the ball. You run to where the ball's going to be.
Yeah.
Right? So you're running to a nothing. And a lot of people don't have that destination. They're running to the ball. They're looking at the target, or they're just standing still, spinning their wheels. So I try to articulate, where's the goal? Okay, and on the way to the goal, where do you need to run now in order to get the thing, to kick the goal, or to score the try? You've got to run to the gap. And a lot of people don't think of that place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I hit them over there, but I think coaching helps you do that, because if you're running your own life, you're doing it all yourself. So I'm a coach. I've got 3 coaches. I need someone else to help me, and I learn from my clients too.
Yep.
It's just the most powerful thing. So in 2002, I flew to Sydney. I spent about $4,000 and had a weekend with Bob Proctor at a weekend seminar called Born Rich. The word money didn't come up. The word money's not even in the book, but rich being prosperous, happy, fulfilled, loving life, that sort of stuff. Money's part of it, but it wasn't about money. And his Born Rich seminar was so moving for me. And luckily, there was hundreds of people there, but luckily on the second day, I was one of about 8 that were invited to have lunch with him in the hotel rooms at Star City down there. And a guy called John Canary, who wrote a book called Breakthrough Limitations. Anyway, at the lunch, we were chatting, and I had my name, Burgeon, and Proctor says to me, "So who are you?" And I said, "Oh, Sean, Bob." Yeah, I thought we met. No, who are you? I said, "Sean Gordo." And he said, "That's just your name. You'll probably use that till you die, but you could go down to the law office and change that. You could have another name. That's not who you are." Then I started feeling a bit self-conscious. I'm surrounded by people looking at me, and he said, "So who are you?" And I started getting on with, I'm Sean Gordon. He said, "That's just your body." He said, "You moved into it, you'll move out of it. That's not who you are." And was it? You're thinking, I'm not my name, I'm not my body. Everyone's looking at me. I'm a leading educator in Australia, and I can't say who I am. And he was pushing it on me a bit, and he said, "Look, you exist on 3 planes. You're a spiritual being. You don't have spiritual experiences. You are a spiritual being, which is not a religious thing. You just are. We're all connected. You have an intellect, and you live in a physical body. Collectively, that's who you are. And so you can't just think everything up. It can't all be in your conscious mind. You've got a subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind is what actually drives the thing you walk around in. So when people say what you think about, you become, they don't mean what you think about in your conscious mind with your knowledge. Like, I could think about jumping off here. You have crazy fantasies. And they're not actually going to do it. They don't actually think that. That's not what they're thinking. What they're thinking is, I'm worthy, I'm beautiful, I can, I can't. That thoughts that talk to you, the little voice that talks to you before you go to sleep at night. That's what you're thinking about. I'm broke. We can never do that. We've lost. We've won. And it's the learning how to understand the subconscious mind, which sadly it's subconscious, therefore you can't see it. You can only see the external results with your conscious mind. And the interplay between what you know and what you feel and what you actually believe at a subconscious level fronts up in how you turn up and how you do your sale. Ask for a hand in marriage, ask for him. But whatever you're going to do, it becomes how you show up, how you play your game. So Proctor taught me incredibly that there is ways to use the conscious mind and 6 higher mental faculties that I teach that I've never taught in Sphere to help people use the conscious mind to reprogram the subconscious. And over a period of 24 weeks, I'll take people on a journey and their life changes like night and day if they want to.
Yeah.
And have a look at my website. The testimonials are ridiculous. I'm a function of it. I did the same. I used the same strategies and my life just got better and better. So Bob Proctor's been a hero. He died 3 years ago and I was a bit messed up about that because he was such a great person, but we captured his wisdom and I've got the videos. I use him in all of my lessons. I use his material and it's very powerful. But more importantly, with my world, we have it we've codified it. So it's a curriculum. Starts here, goes to there, and it builds and builds and builds. So you can get a lot of his stuff online and it's terrific. But when it's in order and it's organized and you come with me for 24 weeks, yeah, as he says, you need a telescope to see back to where you started.
There certainly must be a benefit to being a coach of those types of things today with an educational background so that you know how to roll it out.
I was lucky to have a teaching background. And if you care, and I do care about people, but that helps. There's a funny sort of paradigm of mindset in Australia anyway, and particularly Australian men, many of them. It's less so, but many men don't want to have a coach. They think it's a sign of weakness. I've got 3, by the way. I know you've got coaches probably. And one particular story you'll probably like, but I was talking to one guy and he was a bit stuck, but I knew he loved sport and I knew he loved tennis. And I said to him, so he's gagging on the idea of engaging coach because it sort of done my week. And I said to him, well, you love your tennis. He said, oh yeah. I said, and it was years ago. I said, Federer's your favourite, isn't he? Yep. I said, Federer's got a coach. He said, I know. I said, well, he has got a coach. And he got that. And I said, well, you've got to get this. Federer can beat his coach at tennis. The penny dropped. I said, the coach is not superior to you. The coach has a different game to play. So I've coached anaesthetists, lawyers, teachers, mumpreneurs, tradies. I treat us all as equal. I'm not less than anyone, but I'm not better either. So everyone I get the privilege of coaching with, I walk with them and I learn from all of them. And I said to Joel, he was a doctor, an anaesthetist in Melbourne. I said to him, I hope when you put these people to sleep, you can wake them up again. Because I'm your coach, but I certainly can't do that. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
And when Federer's coach can beat him and Wolfie can't play football as well as the boys playing for the Dolphins these days, it's not the point. He's in the coach's box watching what's going on. We have a strategy. We say, we're doing this. I get on the phone and say, oh, look, you're going to be over here. Like, what's going on there? People get in the game and in the game of life and they get lost. They get in their business and they're in their business, not on their business, and they get lost. So a coach is someone who just tap on the shoulder and says, hey, are we doing this? How's that going for you? Why are you procrastinating? Well, whatever it might be, or even just getting a plan to say, where are you going to run to? Where's the gap that you're running to? Because we're actually sitting there spinning your wheels.
There's a lot of times when I come across people and they go, oh, coaches, they're not going to teach me anything I don't already know. And that might be the case, but are you applying it now?
Yeah.
It might be they teach you how to apply it.
Totally.
Or they keep you accountable too.
Yeah. Well,
and not or and.
And absolutely and. And I do teach a lot of new concepts. For many people, I guess the people I coach are usually already successful. They've already invested a bit in themselves and they get the value of coaching, but they know there's a piece missing. Well, they just know they need someone external and you've got to have a good feeling about it too. Someone could meet me and I meet people with that high sales pitch because if you don't feel right, it's not right. I'm not the key for every door, but I'm the key for enough doors. And so I work with people and that I get their knowledge. They've already got enough knowledge. I've even written an article which you can get from my website called Crossing the Knowing Doing Gap. Because I argue, and I did with kids at school, most people already know enough and can already do enough to have a spectacular lift in their performance, but they don't do what they know. So, people I know have lost a few kilos in life. They already knew how to do it at the beginning, but they didn't do it. All right, so if you read my little article, I explain a little bit about why that happens and the various levels of knowing. It's not enough to know. It's not enough to be able to do. It's the application. And so I teach people to use the knowledge they've got and the skills they've got, and I turn on what they've already got. And then they accelerate, like literally accelerate.
I look back at my weight loss journey and sometimes wonder if knowing what I needed to do to lose weight was actually my Achilles heel, because I always thought at some point I could just do it. And what I never did was just do it.
And then you did it spectacular.
Well, then I did it, but
I was mighty proud of you.
A long time after I should have.
Well, having seen the before and after, I'm mighty proud. I've quoted you and I've had photos of you on and others. I've got people in my group. 2 in particular lost, two different people at 2 different times. I've lost 40 kilos. And I don't talk about diet.
Yep.
I talk about what do you want? What do you want out of your life? They already know what to do. They already know how to do it. So I support that. I encourage that. I challenge that. If that becomes a goal and I want me to keep them accountable, I'll do that too. But by and large, people have gone, their wealth's gone through the roof. They've got this, they've done that. The relationships have got better. And it's all about a function of feeling worthy and knowing how to drive themselves at a subconscious level using those 6 high mental faculties of the conscious mind. Chief among them, imagination, intuition,
Yep.
persistence. Goes on.
What's one thing that you wish you could, the main concept that you wish you could spread the most around the world?
Well, sounds like you're on, fashion product. Sounds like we're at a beauty page of the, just people to just trust each other, just to have a sense of the fear that we feel in community and that's being ramped up by social media it's a scourge, and people's anxiety is ramped up because of that. And it's good for viewers, it's good for money, so bad news sells. But my biggest message is that I believe that ignorance is the only problem we've got on this planet. It's like a disease, ignorance. And I don't mean stupid. Like you could be a brain surgeon and be ignorant about gardening. It just means you don't know, and you don't know that you don't know. And we've all got places things that we're ignorant of. Some things I want to stay ignorant of, just by the. Anyway, so ignorance is the problem or the disease, and I think education is the only cure. And if you get people educated enough about what's going on, but even the stuff that's happening now in the political scene, without giving a left or right or up or down view on it, the big issues that are going on, welcome to country, or stuff that's happening in America, or stuff that's happening in the Middle East. If you've got enough education, and in Africa, education would change the problem socially, spectacularly. And if people knew enough of the other side, I think we'd have higher trust. So I'd like people to, and can I qualify too? I don't want to confuse schooling with education. This is a 20-year school principle. Schooling being, learning stuff, learning facts. We've got kids leaving school now, as I mentioned, they've got a lot of knowledge, but they're anxious, depressed, disaffected. They don't know, they're not educated. If you're educated, you can get what you want without harming other people. You can drive yourself effectively.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's some great quotes around it. Mark Twain said, "I never let my schooling get in the way of my education." And John Ruskin, another great person I like to read, said, "Education is about getting people to know what they don't know. Education is about getting people to behave as they don't behave. In order for you to lose weight, you have to behave differently. You already knew enough. You didn't behave that way."
Yeah.
So if people want to get my little article, Crossing the Knowing Doing Gap, 2 things happen. I'll give you the warning. If you get it, it's free on my website at seangordon.com.au. But that will trigger a newsletter. So then you get something from me every week. Right? But you can always unsubscribe if it's too boring.
Yeah.
So
Thank you very much for chatting with me today.
my pleasure.
Thank you.
Great.
What are you going to be doing in 10 years' time?
I'm traveling. I'm not going to be living here. Traveling and living somewhere closer to the water, but on the peninsula.
Yeah, okay.
So
Like it here?
I love it here.